Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Now back in 2013 I really wanted one of these, a GTX 760. The only problem was I couldn't afford it and it never would have worked with my cheap 350 watt power supply anyway. That's where the 750 Ti came in. This cheaper, lower power and lower cost card came along 8 months later, and although it offered much lower performance than that of the 760, I decided it more than met my needs, and well, the rest is history. For gamers like me, this was a bit of a low spec saviour. Fast forward to 2023 and both of these cards will struggle in modern games. The 2 gigs of VRAM will limit you to low settings and resolutions, not to mention the lack of full DX12 support, which may impact your ability to play certain games. Neither are ideal, but I'd argue that the weaker 750 Ti is actually in the better position these days. The Kepler-based 760 only receives security updates, with the last game ready driver dating back to September 2021. You'll often get pop-ups informing you that your drivers are out of date and that games might not work correctly. Forza Horizon 5 actually didn't start at all, even though I'm pretty certain it should. Maybe a recent game or driver update caused the black screen crashes that didn't occur with the 750 Ti, as the game worked just fine with that card. Speaking of which, the Maxwell 750 Ti still receives aforementioned game-ready drivers, making it one of the only 700 series cards to do so. How much longer for? Well, I couldn't guess. All this got me wondering, however, about comparative performance. When the 750 Ti came out, it was easily outpaced by the 760, no question. These days, I can't help but wonder if that performance gap has closed up a little, or whether brute power alone will keep the now unsupported GTX 760 in the lead. Let's find out. With the latest available drivers for each card installed, 47414 for the 760 and 52824 for the 750 Ti, it was time for some comparisons, starting with Cyberpunk 2077. In Cyberpunk 2077 we are of course limited to 720p with the lowest settings for both graphics cards. This was a very close start. The GTX 760 hit 36 FPS on average with a 1% low of 21 and a 0.1% low of 19. The GTX 750 Ti on the other hand, the card that is still supported, hit 33 FPS on average with a 1% low of 20 and a 0.1% low of 18. I think both of these cards aren't ideal for Cyberpunk 2077, although the game is still somewhat playable with both of them. If you are on a very low budget or one of these is all you have, you could certainly get away with playing this game, but I'd recommend implementing a 30 FPS cap just to try and make things feel a little more consistent. I think this is a surprising start to our benchmarks today, as the gap is definitely smaller with these two than I thought it would be. On to the next one. Next up, I tested Marvel's Spider-Man Remastered. Now, this is where the GTX 750 Ti actually pulled ahead. The GTX 760 also ran the game, but I did experience a few weird visual glitches, namely lights that would flicker in strange places, and if you are sensitive to particular lighting effects, it's not going to be ideal. I myself got a bit of a headache from the flickering, which I think is due to the outdated drivers or the older architecture of the 760, of course. The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt with its next gen patch now, 1080p is what we were able to use here, albeit with the lowest settings. TAAU was also enabled with low sharpening. Now this was a pretty obvious win for the GTX 760 here, 41 FPS on average with far superior percentile lows. The game felt a lot smoother, and as you may be able to see, it was a lot smoother on paper as well. The 750 Ti stuttered quite a lot in Elden Ring, and the crown was passed back to the 750 Ti here in terms of performance. 46 FPS on average with a 1% low of 37 and a 0.1% low of 28. The 760, however, just managed 43. I say it like it was a lot less, it really wasn't, but where this card did suffer was with the percentile lows, 3 and 2 respectively. respectively. So I think it's definitely the older architecture here which is affecting the frame rates more, or the frame times, sorry, more. And the experience was nowhere near as good, nor did it feel as smooth when actually playing on the 760. If I didn't have the MSI Afterburn overlay enabled, I could still tell that this experience was a lot worse. GTA 5 is an older game, and much like The Witcher 3, it performs a lot better on the GTX 760. Here it was actually significantly better at 1080p with the high settings, FXAA and normal textures, just because of that 2GB VRAM limitation. 95 on the 760 with decent percentile lows, but that's not to say the 750 Ti didn't put up a hell of a fight. 71 was the average with a 1% low of 59 and a 0.1% low of 52. So again, no stutter to report, very smooth overall, and it was a nice experience with both cards. Red Dead Redemption 2 was another close one, an average of 43 for the 760 and 42 for the 750 Ti. The 1% and 0.1% lows were better with the 750 Ti, so that's the smoother experience. I did notice in the benchmark run that there were a few more hiccups, and this is reflected in those percentile figures with the 760. When actually playing here, running through Valentine, there was also more noticeable stutter with the older card, and the 750 Ti, although it has that 1 FPS difference lower on average, I think it was actually the more superior experience and the way I'd rather play the game, to be honest. It doesn't exactly look great at the lowest settings at 720p, but you can get away with playing it like this if you are desperate, or if one of these cards is all you have, of course. Finally, it's Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, the 2022 version. Was it 2022? I think so. 720p lowest once again. Here the 760 pulled ahead, not by more than 10 FPS, however. The 1 and 0.1% lows were also very close, so either result or either card is going to give you a decent plus 60 FPS result with the lowest settings. Now, I couldn't use the in-game benchmark run here because it froze with the 760 every time. It froze the whole computer. So what I did was set up a bot match, and in that bot match I followed the same route a few times around the edge of the map with both cards. So not the most ideal way to benchmark this game, but it still gives us a good idea of performance here, and there is still a noticeable difference between the two cards and a noticeable difference when playing. But there we go, the 760 and the 750 Ti are more likely to trade blows now in 2023, with the older card being officially unsupported. This is a lot different to what you could have expected back in the day, when both of these were fairly fresh to the market. If you enjoyed this one, leave a like down below, leave a dislike if you didn't, let me know your thoughts on the results in the comments section, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and hopefully I'll see all of you in the next one.